All right, bang. Today is Tuesday. It is August 29th. Welcome to the Dog Walk, presented by Barstool Sports. As always on Tuesday, I am joined by Chief. Chief, welcome.
It's good to be here.
Good to be here. Great to be here. Excited for today's topic. We got a little pick six. Not just news stories all the time. Sometimes it's just cool things.
Little
that are
nuggets.
Going on.
Yeah.
Yes, little nuggets.
Yeah.
Specifically in college football. We're going off yesterday's draft. And I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how you like it. We'll see how you like it, because we're getting back into history a little bit, bringing it modern day, court cases, the White House, all sorts of different things.
Good stuff.
All related to college football.
Before we get into the first topic, though, I do want to talk about today's sponsor, and that is MUGSY Jeans. Listen, we've talked in length about how comfortable MUGSY is, whether it's the shorts, whether it's the chinos, whether it's the joggers or the swimwear. Make sure you check out MUGSY. Yeah,
today is shorts weather. It's a gazillion degrees outside in Chicago. If you don't have MUGSY shorts, I feel bad for you. But we're around the corner from jogger season. I can't wait, because when it's football season, that means joggers to me.
And we also have a great situation where Chief, like I did a month or two ago, he's going to be doing a giveaway. These are great. People like these. So that's right. If you order a piece of clothing from MUGSY and you got to screenshot the receipt and make sure you use promo code Chicago, you will be entered into a random drawing to win an extra piece.
Yep. I'll buy a piece of clothes.
Yes, I named the winner last time. So it's a real thing. I did this with MUGSY, did it with Roback. So we're happy to keep doing it for people who support the show and our sponsors who support us. So go ahead to MUGSY.com and get 10% off now using code Chicago. That's 10% off some of the most premium jeans, chinos, swimwear, and shorts on the internet. MUGSY also offers free shipping and returns, so there's absolutely no risk giving them a try. If you're in Chicago, Boston, D.C., or Austin, Texas, make sure to head downtown and check out their storefront as well. Easy vibes every time. Enjoy a beer while you shop. Make sure you send that receipt to chief@barstoolsports.com. You have until 5 p.m. Friday.
Full week.
5 p.m. Friday, full week, and then we'll put all the names into a random name generator, and someone will basically get a buy one, get one free MUGSY.
A lucky draw.
Just got to make sure you screenshot it. You got to use code Chicago.
Yep.
That's the key. All right, Chief, topic number one.
All right, topic number one, it kind of gets back to like the origins of football. It's fucking wild. I didn't know this, but when they first started playing, it doesn't look anything like the football we know today. They had teams that are like 25 against 25 on the field at the same time. Fucking like it was a war.
That's like grammar school, Pop Warner.
Yeah, but it's just guys mashing heads into each other.
25 on the field at the same time?
25,
not 25-man rosters?
50 guys at a time.
Oh, no shit. All right, never mind.
Right.
I said that
and
wrong.
they would play in like a big open field, and then they started like trying to figure out the rules, and there's like Walter Camp is credited with like coming together with the rules. And the first real collegiate football game was 1869. It was between what is now Princeton and Rutgers. So Rutgers, they might have peaked as a football program in 1869, I feel like, but playing the first ever game. But that was the first game, and the professors saw it, and they're like, get this out of here. We're supposed to be focusing on academics, all right? And they wouldn't. They didn't ban it, but they're like, we don't want people playing this. You couldn't stop it. Columbia started a team. All these, and it was like if you look at the old schedules, you see like the there's a famous game that was University of Wisconsin against Carroll College. Like Carroll College is still around today, but it's got like 1,100 kids. They play like University of Wisconsin football because it was just like, hey, you got 11 guys? Like, yeah, we got 11 guys. You want to show up and play some football in that field over there? And that's how they did football. That's how they would do their scheduling. Like, nothing was really official, but it became a thing like where people wanted Americans playing football the way that Walter Camp had kind of designed it, because they were worried. Tell me if you've heard something like this before. The older people, so the generation that fought in in the Civil War in the 1860s, were looking at their sons. They're sending to these Ivy League schools and these other places and be like, our sons are a bunch of fucking pussies. They've never fought in a war because it was peacetime, right? Yeah. We're doing the Reconstruction. They were like the Indian Wars and things like that. But we didn't have like an organizing principle. So the older generation was looking at kids of that day being like, these guys are a bunch of little bitches. We need to come up with something. We need American football to be a thing. So we don't raise a nation of pussies because we don't have a war to get to turn our boys into men, like we did in the old days. Because there used to just kind of be a war every generation, and we went like a pretty long time between major conflicts, which would have been the Civil War and World War I. So they were like, football can be in its place, and
that's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome, right?
Pretty fucking
like,
awesome.
And there's like quotes from like senators and like, you know, and then even like academics at the time, because like the original, like the hoity-toity people at Princeton were like, this athletic folly, like this will distract people from their studies. And then it became like a source of like school pride and like turning boys into men. So they really liked it, and they thought it was like a better, because baseball was like, you know, the American pastime, like the ultimate number one most popular sport, and it was that way for a long time. But that idea was like, look, there's no contact, there's no physicality, there's no passion. Like you could play a full baseball game and not be angry at your opponent, you know, for 1 second. Where football, like you need like that controlled rage, like that warrior spirit that they're trying to like have come out of football and just be into the culture. And it got to the point by 1900 that this sport was now, after like, you know, 20, 30 years of growing in popularity, about to be banned again because it was so fucking violent. People were dying all the time playing football. If 45 people die on the football field, like these college games between 1900 and 1905, and then like a ton of injuries. They had like different substitution rules, so like you had to play basically the whole game both ways, and it was like more violent than rugby. The way you tackled, all your formations, all that shit. It was just like a much more violent game, and by design. So there began to be like this push to, and this is probably topic 2. Okay, so topic 1 was the origin. Topic 2, the guy who had to come in to save football, Teddy Roosevelt. Okay, so that this was like the momentum in the culture was like, we got to get rid of football. Like these kids are dying, kids are getting maimed and injured. Teddy Roosevelt's own son like had broken orbital bone and broken jaw, and he's like, I don't fucking care. So his quote, Teddy Roosevelt's quote was, I believe in rough games and rough manly sports. Teddy Roosevelt. TR was like the fuck. We should sell shirts with his face on it. He's just the fucking man. And then there's another quote where he goes, I don't feel any sympathy for someone who gets battered so long as it wasn't fatal. So you could break your leg, break your face. You know, they probably didn't even know what an ACL was back then. Tear all your ligaments. Teddy Roosevelt does not give a fuck. He's like, this is the game that we're playing. We're trying to breed soldiers. We're trying to breed men. This is America's game. He loved football, and he liked that it was so violent because that was kind of his thing. He was like the man's man, president, hunting buffalo, Rough Riders, all that kind of stuff. Spanish-American War, probably. I think I have that right. And he liked the violence of it. But the academics, because everything was kind of built around the Ivy League at that point, so you had like all these schools were like, man, like we can't have all these kids just fucking dying. So Harvard, which is Teddy Roosevelt's, he's an alum from Harvard, banned football. So then he's like, all right, we got to get everybody get on the same page. So he invites like Walter Camp and John Heisman and all these like names that you know from like football lore, even if you don't know where necessarily. They bring all these people in for a summit about football at the White House to be like, we have to change things. This is the number one biggest, most important thing in America apparently right now. So this is like 1906. Like we have to fix football. We have to fix football. So he brings in all the top football minds from around the country, and they decide that we're going to allow the forward pass. So the forward pass, had kind of just been rugby style, okay? So you're going to be allowed to throw the ball forward, but the rule was if it was incomplete, it was the same as an interception today. So, and the ball was like fucking huge and like heavy, so like nobody was really doing it. But they opened up that rule, and then they changed. Originally, it was only 5 yards to get a first down. That's how like 3 yards in a cloud of dust like that. It was such like a grind. Like if you got a yard, you're like, all right, good play. You know, because you're just
different game, dude.
battling for every inch. And so they said we're going to go that from 5 yards to 10 yards for a first down, and we're going to allow the forward pass. So you had you had an American crisis that the president felt obligated to get involved to save football, where he just like took a week out of his. Imagine the president being like, I'm stopping everything. You got wars going on, I don't give a fuck. You got a financial crisis, don't care. We got to solve this football issue. And he did. So they invented the forward pass, and then nobody really used it for a long time. There was like one, it was like that Wisconsin played against Carroll College. Like they had completed some passes, but no one was really using the forward pass until guess who? Do you know this story?
No.
You ever heard of the name Newt Rockne?
Yes.
You ever heard about Notre Dame?
I have. I figured this was where this was going.
Yeah. So Newt Rockne was the guy who basically, they were the ones who utilized the forward pass for like the first time in like a high profile way, and like consistently used it. So they used it, and they had like this big game of the century type game. They were playing Army, who was always like the best team, because back then Army just got all like the big soldiers. So they got all these kids, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to fucking Army. No shit, they're awesome at football. And so Notre Dame beat Army, and they beat them using the forward pass. And then they started to like change the shape of the ball and make it a little bit easier to throw. So it wasn't like you were throwing like, I don't even know what you would compare it to. It was like just a huge, heavy leather ball. And so they made it a little lighter, a little bit more oblong, and this changed until,
a little more aerodynamic.
A little bit more aerodynamic, yeah. So you could grip it and actually throw it more than, 4 yards downfield.
I got to say, this makes me feel better about the future of football, because if we got through that in the early 1900s,
yeah,
I feel we can get through concussions now.
Concussions, and then, and then the other thing we'll get into, because I've been so passionate about this realignment. And I was just like, where did all this start? All this money grab start? And I've seen people, and I've been blaming like things in more recent time, but I've had a lot of people hit me up being like, this is Notre Dame's fault. And I was like, no, it's not. Can't be Notre Dame's fault.
Here we go. Topic 3, realignment is Notre Dame's fault.
You could make an argument that they kind of set this all in motion. You could make an argument. So back in the day, and I didn't know this, but like I'm sure our dads would, the NCAA as a governing body controlled all the broadcast rights, and they decided like, hey, we're going to negotiate kind of like how the Masters does it. Like we're negotiating with one network, and our whole thing's just going to be on one network, and there's going to be like 2 games a weekend. Okay, so you're going to have like, an East Coast game and maybe USC, later. But if that, a lot of times it's just one, but they have like one marquee game per week for college football. Nobody else is on TV. There's fewer channels. They have this policy where we're only, we're negotiating as a governing body. And that's just the way it's going to be. And the NCAA was kind of keeping the money. So you had, that after a while, as people started to realize like, hey, like could be big business, sort of like this is illegal. Okay, like this is an antitrust violation, because there's something called the Sherman Act, where it's like you can't legally limit trade like artificially, so it has to be like a free market thing. And so the University of Oklahoma Board of Regents sued the NCAA in like 1983 under this antitrust law act, basically for the rights to do their own TV contracts. And they won. They won all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won 9-0 that, hey, like, yep, the NCAA is committing this is an antitrust violation. And there's this other organization that formed kind of like, of almost like the super teams, right? Like all the college football elites, Texas, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, all the big programs across the country. It's like, hey, we're going to negotiate our own thing. And it was like the College Football Association. And that association was doing like the TV negotiations after that. 1990 rolls around. Notre Dame says, we're out of this College Football Association. This no longer works for us. And they signed like the first mega TV deal. So Notre Dame it was in 1990 they signed a 5-year deal. I think the number was $210 million. So $42 million a year for Notre Dame football in 1990. Big money.
Yeah.
Big money. So at that point, there's a lot of people who are saying, like, that was like the first thing that got this ball rolling and made us go where we are today, because it became a money grab and an arms race thing. So I would say that, you know, that was the early predecessor to realignment, even though nobody really moved initially right away. But you saw pretty soon after that, the SEC, they picked up Arkansas and South Carolina. They joined the SEC, and then you had the Big 12 was formed in like 1996, and that was about TV too. So before 1996, you had the Big 8, which is it was teams like Kansas State, I think Oklahoma State, Nebraska, Colorado, maybe Iowa State, Missouri. That was like the Big 8. And then you had the Texas teams. They were in the Southwest Conference, and that was Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Baylor, SMU, all those. And it was like, that's like a good league. TCU, a lot of the current members of the Big 12 were in the Southwest Conference, and then they kind of just took the Big 4 guys, Big 4 schools, and joined the Big 8, joined the Big 8 and formed the Big 12. And the Big 12, Texas A&M has hated Texas for forever. So when the SEC was kicking around expansion and the Southwest Conference was failing, Texas A&M was trying to join the SEC back then. Like, so my whole thing about this fucking, nobody plays each other anymore, all these different rivalries, like, I get so pissed. If they had just done this move in 92 or 96, I wouldn't have said boo. If Texas A&M was in there the whole time. But I grew up with Texas versus Texas A&M on, Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving, and that's what I like to see.
Yeah.
So that was so they were always just being like, they had like this kind of little brother syndrome with Texas, and then everything comes back to money, right? Everything's coming back to money. So like 2010-ish time, I might have a year wrong, I didn't write that down. That's when that Longhorn Network was proposed, signed, launched. That's when Texas A&M was like, fuck this. Like, we're out of here. And the only reason the only reason A&M didn't leave for the SEC the first time is you had government intervention again. So you had both senators. You had the governor of Texas. It was a woman. I'm blanking on her name right now, but she was the governor like right before George Bush was the governor. And they basically like pressured. They used their political pressures and like threatened all this other legislation about funding if A&M left and went to the SEC. Like, we need you in the conference with Texas. Like, so they squeezed them. Basically, they squeezed them, kind of forced them to join the Big 12 instead of going to the SEC in the 90s. So I thought that was interesting. Like, people care about college football. We talked about that story with the Iron Bowl off camera before, where Alabama and Auburn didn't play for like 50 years, 54 years or something like that, because the rivalry got like too heated and they hated each other so much that they just stopped the series. And then the state government had to come in and be like, look, at all your funding's gone unless you guys play each other in football. It's just like the amount of like importance that, with these different references, it just kind of cracks me up, where it's like, hey, like, we're at the end of the day, we're all just fans, and we want to get these boys together. We want to see these guys. No more debating about who's better, this and that. Like, we're going to settle on the field, and we're going to pass government legislation to be able to do it. But that Longhorn Network was like the straw that broke the camel's back and kind of like really set off this chain reaction. Because you remember like BC, Vatech, Miami, they left the Big East, and Big East was never, everyone's like, like, that's too bad. But it makes sense. The Big East was never really a good football conference. It was a basketball league from its inception, and the football schools want to be in a football conference, and
and that's what makes money.
That's what makes money. And they're all, they're still like it's still a regionality thing. Miami could play Florida State. Like, that was, that one always kind of made sense, and no one really was up in arms about that, as far as I read and can remember. this Texas Longhorns network with ESPN, it was a 20-year deal for $300 million. So everybody in the state's going to have it. 24-hour-a-day Texas. So they're like, we're not doing a revenue share with the rest of the league. Like, that's our shit. So Oklahoma's, Texas A&M's, all these people were like, this is fucking bullshit. And you know what the thing was that forced Texas A&M in their minds to be like, we're out? Texas, the Longhorn Network was going to have exclusive broadcasting rights for Friday Night Football in Texas. So, like, this is an unfair recruiting edge that, you know, they're going to have Longhorn Network at every big high school game forever. You know, they could have like Mac Brown there, you know, on Friday nights if they wanted to as part of the broadcast. It was just like, they're like, this is just putting Texas propaganda down everybody's throat 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So they're like, we're not going to even try to compete in this league. Like, this is bullshit. So they're like, we're out. And then that's when they joined the SEC finally, was that the thing that pushed them over the edge was this Longhorn Network. And really it was like the recruiting thing more than, supposedly it was the Friday Night Football more than the revenue share.
Yeah. See, I knew this. I didn't know the high school football.
That's big.
Yeah, that is huge. And oddly enough, it's been the worst decade of Texas football in how long?
And I was going to say that about Notre Dame too. So Notre Dame won a national championship in 1988. I feel like the first half in the 90s after this deal with NBC first happened was good. Like, they had that 1993 year, they almost won the national, probably should have won the national championship. But really from 93 until Brian Kelly, that was probably some of the darkest times of Notre Dame ever.
Yeah. So
money can't buy you everything. You still have to make makes it easier.
Nope.
But you still got to make all the right decisions. So Texas didn't. Notre Dame didn't. And they're still like they're like the two schools. It's like them, Texas, Miami, and SC are all like, are they back? Are they back? Are they relevant? Are they back? And it's like, it feels like Texas might be back in their last year in the Big 12, and Notre Dame is respectable again. You know, but it's not like they're not.
USC, I mean, a lot of people.
SC, Lincoln Riley's done.
Pretty sure they're the favorite to win the Pac-12.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think they are the favorite. But I think they're going to have a harder time.
It's going to be a tough conference.
Yeah.
We talked about it on mid-show last week.
Yeah, it's a deep league. I think Washington's got like.
Well, I'm a big Penix guy, so. You
like Penix, and I want to say they have 3 guys on their defense projected to go in the first round.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so
they're supposed to be pretty nasty. So it should be good. And then it was like, so we did like those two. We did that court case, Oklahoma versus the NCAA, Longhorn Network, and then the other big thing that just shook up college football and made it so it will never be the same is the Ed O'Bannon thing. You familiar with that?
Yes, that's NIL.
I know. Do you know how that case came to be? Like how he got motivated to do it?
Was it from the video game?
So he was just like, but he was like an old guy, right? He played in like 1994 when he won that national championship. So you were never allowed to put like player names or anything. It was just like, here's QB number 2 for Texas A&M, and he's a 5'10", 180-pound scrambling, wild, and it's like, that's fucking Johnny Manziel, or QB 15 for Florida. But they would make him exactly like the guy, just they wouldn't use their name, image, or likeness. So Ed O'Bannon said he was over at a buddy's house, and his kid's son was like, "Oh, you're in my video game." He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You're in the video game." So they had a college basketball video game, like March Madness, whatever the year that was, and he pulls up Ed O'Bannon. I'm 31, UCLA, all this. He's like, that's fucking me. It's like, I didn't give anybody permission to use like my likeness in a video game. No permission. I haven't had any compensation. And he was already, pissy about not having been paid at all. Well, that guy back then for UCLA was actually caught doing all sorts of like payments and academic fraud. You know that guy? What was that guy's name? They won the national championship, but he got in trouble with like that Lamar. I think he was at Rhode Island when they had Lamar Odom and Cuttino Mobley. They got busted. He was at Georgia. He got busted, and he got busted at UCLA. He He was like Samson before him. So he was like the scummiest guy in the 90s. Yeah. But so he probably got paid at UCLA. We'll say that. But he was like, this is not right. So he filed a suit under that Sherman Act, the same thing that the college Oklahoma did in 1984. And he was like, this is illegal. And they put me in this video game without saying anything. And that has gone through all the court system too. And they like ruled in his favor. And that's what opened up the NIL. So it all came like, what if he like got sick that day and just didn't go to his buddy's house, or his kid was outside? Like, we would still have been playing the college football video game for the last decade.
Well, he definitely would have found out at some point, though.
He says that's how he found out.
Yeah, but he still kind of knew. All these people knew that they were being falsely
I think
portrayed.
he was out of like the video game era, though. He was probably like, that was like 2012 or 14 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
So just that thought, like, and they should be paid. It's crazy that you could just like steal someone's soul, someone's their everything about them, and put them in a video game for profit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I was growing up, I was kind of like in between, kind of leaned like they shouldn't be paid.
Yeah.
Like, but now that I've older and matured.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they should be paid.
I don't think that they've figured it out. I don't think they've figured out the right way to do it yet. But
yeah, I could agree.
Yeah, because and I'm not talking about the video game piece, but it's also hard because I just feel like the education is overvalued too. I feel like I want somebody to get into power in the government and being like, this is out of control. The cost of tuition, your ROI on that investment in your education, all this shit, your tax, they're all these universities are nonprofit status, but they're raking in way more money than they ever have from sports and tuition costs and all this different shit, that we're going to do an audit. Every public university in the country is going to get audited. And so it's like, we're going to find out where that money is going and then cut the budget and restrict, put tuition in line with like the inflation rate, because it's like skyrocketed past that. And then it's like, I wonder what the schools would do. Like, all right, if you're making up the number, but it's like, you have $20 million less per year, University of Illinois, to spend. So you figure out where you want it to go, but you're not getting the funding that you used to. Mm-hmm. And then and be like, all right, well, we got to cut this program, that program, and this administrator and that administrator, and like have them run more like a business instead of just a fucking free for all. And then everybody is like, we need student debt relief.
Education should never be a business, Chief.
It is. And then but like, that's the other thing. So there are like all those like for-profit universities, mm-hmm. like Phoenix and all those places. And they have a hard time getting accreditation. Everybody looks down on them, and for good reason. I do think they're like predatory sometimes in a way. And, but so is the University of Illinois. Mm-hmm. Like they do like all the same practices, but they're like, well, we've been doing it longer, so it's our thing. So and like the fact that they get to claim that they're not for profit it's bananas.
Yeah,
it's bananas.
I agree.
And they have the huge endowments, and the prices just keep going up. And the people take out all this debt with no way to pay it ever.
Yeah,
it's fucked up.
We did a whole episode on this one.
Yeah,
and really the problem is the interest rates. That's the biggest problem. Like, I think a lot of people would be okay like paying it too.
Yeah,
but the fact that that's just as soon as it's
and it's like the one form of debt you can't declare bankruptcy on.
Yeah, and as soon as it's unfrozen, you're like, boom, there we go,
shoots up.
But
it's also like it shouldn't be that high. Like, if you have all this crazy endowment, and you have the crazy, especially for the big schools with the athletics, like the tuition. Like I remember watching a documentary one time where there was all these protests in California in the 60s. Because Reagan was the governor, and he's like, look, we can't have free college anymore. California had free college until like 1968 or something like that, 64 or 68. And he raised it from $0 to $400 a semester to go to Cal, Berkeley, UCLA, like all these like unbelievable, some of the best universities in the world, Cal Poly, all of those places, $400 a semester. Fuck you, and they killed this guy. Protests in the street, protests outside the governor's mansion, outside the legislature for $400. What are those tuitions today, Cal Berkeley?
I'm gonna pull it up now. What would you guess? For
Cal Berkeley, which one are you on?
I'm on College Board.
No, but what school are you looking at?
Cal Berkeley tuition. I'll just Google it.
I'll say $48,000 a semester.
In-state is $14,226.
Okay,
it's actually better than I thought it would be.
What's it out of state?
Out of state is $44,000.
Yeah, crazy.
44 grand.
It's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at the math, but imagine paying, $250,000 basically for an undergrad. Like, how long would you have to work making $150,000 a year to be able to pay that off? Like,
a long time.
A long time. So it ain't right.
No.
So.
Holy shit. Pepperdine's fucking $60,000.
Pepperdine.
You don't like Pepperdine?
just trying to make sure you know it's Pepperdine.
Stanford, 56.
Yeah, but I think Stanford's private. But that's the other thing with that audit idea is that, let's say, because Cal and Stanford are close to each other, right? And Stanford's a little bit better, it's more prestigious than Cal. But Cal is a very, an elite institution too.
Mm-hmm.
If suddenly Cal was forced by the state to lower their tuition by X, if Stanford wanted to compete with them for enrollment and also get the best kids, they're going to also have to, maybe not all the way as a private. I don't know if Stanford's private or public, actually. I think they're private. But
yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah. But they would have to be competitively priced against Cal in order to get the type of student that they want, and to get the best student, to get, all that. So you would have to, the idea that the private institutions, the Notre Dames, all that would still have these crazy prices, Yale, Harvard. I don't think they would, because I don't think you could tell someone being like, hey, you can go to this elite state school, or you could pay $50,000 a year more and go down the street to Stanford. I just don't think anybody would sign up for the $50,000 a year more. It's how much better is that degree? Probably not $50,000 a year more. So then they'd have to kind of mirror them. I'm sure this idea is stupid. I don't know how. So if you're listening, tell me how I'm stupid about that.
I don't know.
Makes sense. Makes sense to me.
Let us know.
Yeah.
All right. That's today's podcast. Make sure you look in on MUGSY. Get in
MUGSY, email me, chief@barstoolsports.com.
Also, shout out to the Stool who listened to Free Swim last week and sent me these
the mugs?
The McDonald's Batman Begins Riddler mugs.
I don't remember those being a thing.
Really?
Do you?
Oh, dude, these were big time. I put it on my story and people were like, dude, that's so awesome.
It is awesome. I can't believe that they would just give those out in a drive-thru.
Yeah.
Is it glass? Is it glass?
It's glass. They didn't leave their name, so thank you.
Yeah.
All right, then. Back tomorrow with a free swim. We will see you guys then.